Hello, folks. We are going to wait a couple of minutes as some people trickle in. This is the Northeastern University London Scholar Visa Q&A session. So we know folks might be coming from different appointments, responsibilities, things like that. So we'll give everybody a minute here to kind of trickle in, and then we will get started. All right. So I think we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Jake Goldblum. My pronouns are he, him, and I am one of the associate directors for Global Network first year programs, and I work with the London Scholars Program. So I will be the host slash moderator today for the Q&A. And I'm joined by my colleagues from the London Visa Compliance team. So I'll turn over to them in a second for introductions and then a short presentation. But I did want to make a couple of notes that number one, if folks aren't able to attend today or need to pop off early for another appointment or another engagement, no problem. We're going to be recording the session and following up with folks afterwards. But then also we have a webinar playlist that families and students can always access after our sessions. And another note is that these sessions are for more general questions. Unfortunately, we can't get into very specific items today. So if folks do have specific questions about specific nuanced items for your personal process, you want to contact your visa compliance officer via the Cash Shield messaging function. And you can always email the visa team as well with questions. And that email will be in the presentation that the visa team has. So with that, actually, I will turn it over to our visa compliance team for some introductions and then the presentation. And then I think we'll turn it back to me for some questions that we have. All right, so I'll turn it over to you, Poppy.
Thank you, Jake. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Poppy Kirkbride. I'm the Senior Visa Compliance Officer here at NU London in the Visa Compliance team. And I'm here with my colleague, Migle. Do you want to introduce yourself, Migle?
Thank you, Poppy. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Migle, and I am a Visa Compliance Officer here at Northeastern University, London. And I may have spoken to some of you over the phone and answered some of your queries, but we're very excited to host the webinar today and answer any further questions.
Thank you, Migle. Okay, so we're just going to have a really short presentation, just with a couple of slides for anyone that may not have been able to access their Cash Shield, for example. And then you'll have our email address on screen, and we'll head straight into the Q&A because that's what we want to spend our time here doing today. So as you all know, you will all either have or need to obtain the UK student visa for the London Scholars Programme. Just to mention as well, if you're not a London Scholars student or parent, this session would not apply to you. So hopefully London Scholars only in this session. So if anybody has not been able to claim their Cash Shield account yet, so if you have not started providing documents to the team here in London, you need to check your Northeastern email account. So all of the Cash Shield invitations, notifications, and reminders are sent to the student's Northeastern account. If you haven't claimed your account yet, the instructions are on screen. And if you're having any issues, you can contact the IT service desk at Northeastern. The email address is also on screen for you there. It's really important that you're able to log in and access your Cash Shield. If you have been able to access your Cash Shield, but you're having problems with the password, logging back in or anything like that, that the visa compliance team here in London can help you with that. So if you've already accepted that invitation, please do reach out to us. We can work with you to help you to gain entry again to your Cash Shield account. So please do reach out. So Importance of information accuracy. So it's just a small reminder about when you're entering the information in CashShield, it's important that you take your time and ensure that all the information you provide is correct. If you believe you've made a mistake with any of the information you've provided, there's a little chat function in the bottom right-hand corner of the CashShield account. Here's an example of it on the left-hand side. And if you believe you've answered a question wrong, for example, you've popped the wrong passport number in, and you're struggling to edit your answers, you can just drop a message on the system. This message will come directly to your assigned visa compliance officer. So could be myself or Migle or one of our other team members. And once they return to work, they'll pick up your message and they'll be able to help you edit any of your answers that you believe are incorrect. So we're using all of this information to assess whether you're eligible for a UK student visa, and we have to inform the UKVI of your basic information. So it's really important that the information is accurate, or if you believe there's a mistake on your cash statement, please do also drop us a message and we can have a look into that for you. The other thing just to note is CashShield uses pound sterling as the currency, so please answer the financial questions using pounds. The government approved currency converter is Awanda, so this is the converter that the UK government will use if they need to assess your financial evidence. So it's always just a good idea to use that currency converter so that you know the amount that you should be entering into the system. Again, don't panic if you believe you've made any mistakes. The visa compliance officers can edit your answers for you, so just drop them a message in the chat. Okay, so we do want to jump straight into the Q&A. Just to say again, any specific situations, please mention this to your visa compliance officer. They can arrange a phone call with you or chat this over email. And here is our email address on screen. So if you do want to send us an email after the webinar or during the webinar, as you think you've got a personal case that you wish to discuss, please send us an email. And I will hand over to you again, Jake.
All right, great. Thank you, Poppy. And of course, you should be able to see, I forgot to mention this at the start, you should be able to see that you have a Q&A box, I think at the bottom of your screen. And you can pop in questions that you have throughout. We do have some questions that we want to get through as well. So I will start with Poppy. So Poppy, this is a pretty common one that we get, and we wanted to make sure we ask this question. Can you explain the CAS issuance deadline?
Sure, yeah. So the CAS issuance deadline is August the 2nd. So we want to make sure that all of our students have obtained a CAS by this date. This does not mean you have to have received your visa by this date. So if you're awaiting your visa decision past August 2nd, that's absolutely fine. But we need to make sure that you have a CAS by August the 2nd. However, if you are an A-level student, so that's a student who has been studying the A-level curriculum, so not a US high school diploma, not an IB student, A-levels. If you're an A-level student, your results will come out on the 15th of August, so that deadline does not apply to you. You'll need to speak to your VCO and they will advise you on what you need to do in order to arrive on time. So the CAS issuance deadline is just to make sure that everyone has enough time to apply for their visas in August if they haven't done so already and arrive in London in time for the course start date.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Bobby. Very helpful. Another question that we have been getting is I received my IB results, but my CAS hasn't been issued. What should I do in that case?
Okay, great. So any students who have been studying the IB diploma will have received their results early July, I believe July the 5th. If you have not yet received your CAS and you're an IB student, please reach out to your VCO. We need to receive your results directly through the IBO system. So you as a student will be able to submit and share your results with institutions via the IBO website. If you're not sure how to do this, please reach out to us. But we cannot issue your CAS until the results have been received to us or to Northeastern University through the system. So if you're not sure, please get in touch. We'll tell you exactly how to do this. And then once we've received your results through the system, they'll be verified and we can issue the CAS as long as all of your other documents meet requirements. So anyone who's studying the IB and hasn't shared their results, it's really important that you do so as soon as possible in order to get your CAS.
Awesome. Thank you, Poppy. All right. So another common one we get is about 529 accounts. And the question is generally, are 529 accounts acceptable? And is there any additional information that you can share about that, Poppy?
Yeah, sure. So 529 accounts can be used for financial evidence for the CAS. However, they can only be used for the tuition proportion of the CAS. So the living cost requirement, which is separate to the tuition requirement, will need to be shown in an alternative account to a 529. In addition, if you've paid anything towards the course already, that can be deducted from your tuition. But 529s can only be used for tuition. It must be in the student's name or one of their parents' names. It cannot be another family member. So it must be the student or the parent. And if you have not shown your financial evidence yet and you do have a 529, please upload it to CashShield and your VCO can review it, check it meets requirements, and then hopefully issue your CAS alongside another bank statement for the living costs.
Perfect. Thank you, Poppy. All right. So this is another financial related question. So what should I do if I have received a grant or scholarship from Northeastern University? Can I use this as part of my visa application?
Yeah, perfect. So yes, please do upload your Northeastern grant letters or scholarship letters to CashShield. So we can deduct this from the total amount that we're required to see for the visa application for the CAS and what you'll need to show as part of the visa application. So if you upload it to CashShield, the VCO will basically convert it into pounds on the date that your CAS is issued. So there might be small fluctuation based on the date you upload to the date CAS issued. And this will be deducted from your total tuition fee, but also from the total that you need to show in order to get a CAS. So it's really important if you haven't provided that letter and you have one, please provide it to your VCO and this will hopefully help you be able to arrange the other finances. So perhaps the rest of the tuition that you need to show plus the living cost proportion. And your VCO can convert that for you and give you the exact amount that they need to see in another account. So hopefully that would be helpful for you in order to obtain a CAS.
Fantastic. Thank you, Poppy. All right. Another popular question is, I'm traveling over the summer. How do I make sure that I get my visa in time for the start of the program?
Thank you, Jake. That is a super important question. If you do not have a CAS yet and you have travel planned, you need to reach out to your VCO and let them know the dates of your travel as soon as possible. Your VCO can help inform you about your options and when it's best to apply. But you need to make sure now we're approaching August. If you do have travel planned, you're most likely going to need to consider a priority visa service. So you'll be able to purchase this when you're completing your biometrics appointment. So you're booking the biometrics appointment online after you've submitted your application. They usually start, I think, in the US at the moment, they're in the $600 mark. But this reduces the waiting time from 3 weeks, so 15 working days, right down to 5 working days. If there is any emergency, so if, for example, you're traveling next week, you haven't applied for your visa, you're not going to be back until just before the course start date. There is also the option for a super priority service, which is really expensive, but it does reduce the decision-making time right down to 1 working day. So if you are in a situation where this is the only way that you're going to be able to obtain the visa and start the course on time, please reach out to us. We can send you all of that information over, and then you'll be able to select that service when you're booking your biometrics appointment. So you cannot, just to clarify, because we do get this a lot, you cannot now book a priority service after you've already applied for the visa. So if you've applied for the visa already and you haven't paid for a priority service, you can't now pay for one. But if you haven't got your CAS and we're approaching August and you think you might have travel plans or a reason why you need to get the visa quicker, that service is available for you, and your VCO will be able to advise you on whether they think it's necessary for your case.
Amazing. Thank you, Poppy. All right, let's see what else we have. So this question is about documents. So this one, and I think there are some folks who have like some different document related questions, but I don't have my final high school transcript yet. Can I use my provisional transcript and just bring my final one to enrollment? And along with that, is what documents are required to bring, what documents are students required to bring with them to enrollment in London?
Sure. Okay, so the first question is about before you get your CAS. So you can't receive a CAS until you've received your final results. So whether that's US high school diploma, whether that's international baccalaureate, whether that's A-level, we cannot issue the CAS until the final results are received. So for that reason, we can't issue the CAS based on a provisional transcript or any kind of provisional letter from the institution that you're studying at. It must be the official final transcript, the final certificate, or the final results received through the IBO, for example, or your final A-level results, which come out in August. So whichever high school type of qualification you're studying, just make sure that you've provided the final results to the VCO, to the visa team. Otherwise, we won't be able to issue the CAS. If you haven't received your results yet, please do find out from your school when that transcript or when those results will be released, and then you can inform your VCO, these are the date that my results will be released. What else do I need to provide in the meantime to make sure that when my results are released, I can obtain my CAS straight away? So that's what we need to do with anyone studying A-levels, for example. You must make sure that all your other documents have been approved on CAS Shield so that as soon as your A-level results are released, we can issue the CAS and we can send it to you. Now, the second part of the question is, what do I need to bring with me to enrollment? I understand this is a massive question at the moment. Really happy that everyone's reaching out to us about it, though, because it is super important. So you will receive information from the teams in London about enrollment, what it will look like, what kind of orientation activities you'll have, and kind of all of that information put together from various departments. But what is really important to know is the first thing that will happen when you arrive to enroll with us at NU London is you will have to have your visa checks. So this will be with us. You need to bring your passport. It must be the passport that you have your student visa in. So if you're a dual national, it must be the one which you had your student visa issued with. And you must also bring the document that was used on your CAS. So at the bottom of your CAS statement, it will say evidence used to obtain offer, and it will have your qualification listed. Now, depending on when and what we received at certain times, it may have your transcript, it may have your diploma listed, it may have your IB results listed, it may have your Indian school certificate listed. So any diplomas that were written on the CAS need to be brought with students to London. It must be the official diploma certificate. It cannot be a photocopy of the diploma. And this is just basically because the UK government requires us to see that qualification in person and verify it. So when we are audited, we have to show that we have done this. So if anyone has a high school diploma or a school certificate issued on their CAS, so it's written at the bottom of their CAS statement, they must pack this in their suitcase and bring it with them to London. I would recommend keeping it in its, usually they're kind of in like a folder with a hardback. I would recommend keeping it in that. Then you can make sure that it can just lie flat in your suitcase or in your rucksack and it won't get damaged. But it must come with you to London. If you have used your transcript on your CAS, you do not need to bring it to London. We may reach out to you to have it verified, but usually transcripts are electronically verified, which means usually we've received them directly from your school. There may be the odd case where we need to reach out to you and ask you to bring it with you. However, 90% of transcripts do not need to be brought with students to London. It's the students that have the diploma on the CAS, they must bring it with them in their suitcase. If you're not sure, ask your VCO. On CashShield, you can just log back in, even if you've got your visa, and just say, do I need to bring my diploma with me? And the VCO will be able to let you know. But you will be receiving all of this information in full soon. But for us, you just need to bring your passport and the qualification used on your CAS. I hope that helps clarify that. I know that it can be a little bit confusing. So if you're not sure specifically on your case, please do reach out to us and we can advise you. And you just might need to log back into that CAS statement you used when you applied for your visa and just check what that qualification was. And then if it says diploma, just pack that diploma with you in your suitcase. Then you can take it back at Thanksgiving or at Christmas as well and just take it back home with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Poppy. I think that was a major question, but I think that was a very comprehensive answer. So thank you so much. All right. And then we get this question a lot, and seems like some folks are kind of in the middle of the process potentially. Some folks have finished, but can you explain the financial requirements for the visa application?
Sure. So basically, to meet the financial evidence requirements, you need to show that you have enough money to pay the tuition for the year and you have enough money to support yourself whilst living in London. Now, the UK government set a specific amount for the living cost, which is £12,006 for the year. And the tuition fee amount in pounds is £51,994. So that's just the tuition proportion of that program fee converted into pounds. As a lot of you are aware, many of you would have already paid something towards your tuition, and Migley will probably mention something about that later. But if you have paid anything towards your fees, this can be deducted from the total amount we're required to see before issuing your CAS. So if you've paid £10,000 towards your tuition, or it converts to £10,000, you would only have to show £41,994 plus the living cost. So that's the evidence requirement. Now, how you meet it is you must show a bank statement or a bank letter dated within the last month, so the last 31 days, and it must cover a full period of 28 days. So if it's a bank statement, we just need to see that the minimum required amount has been held in the account for 28 consecutive days. A letter could prove this by confirming from the bank, this is the lowest amount held in the account for 28 consecutive days, and we confirm the money can be withdrawn immediately. If you're not sure, what I would suggest is if you head over to the London Scholars YouTube page where all of these recordings go. I did a video at the start of kind of, I think, May time, and we did a full financial evidence breakdown. So we kind of show examples and we say, this is exactly how you meet the requirement. Here's the calculation you need to follow. So if you're not sure, and what I've said wasn't like majorly helpful, it is kind of the hardest bit in order to get your CAS. So if you're not sure, head over to the YouTube page. I think it was CAS and Visa webinar overview. You can head right onto there and look through the video and skip right to the financial evidence part as well. So hopefully that will help you. And again, just ask your VCO, they can pick up the phone and explain it to you as well. We're all here to help you. So yeah, just let us know if you're struggling with that.
Great, thank you. All right. All right, so this question comes up from time to time. Can I apply for my visa outside of my country of nationality?
Yes, so good question. You can only apply for your visa in a country that you have the right to reside in. So either your country of nationality, or if you're a dual national, you would have the right to apply in that country, or you have a like permanent residence in that country. So you'll be able to show us your kind of like long-term visa for that country or your permanent residence card, and that would give you the right to apply in that country. You cannot apply in any country that you are just the visitor of. So if you're on holiday, for example, I'm a UK national, but I'm on holiday in Spain. Can I apply for my visa in Spain? No, you would need to return to your home country in order to make your visa application. But perhaps if you were, a national of America, but you live in Mexico and you have a Mexican residence permit, you just need to show that to your visa compliance officer, and you'll need to provide it as part of your visa application, but it would give you the right to apply in that country. So as long as you're not a visitor and you have the proof that you have the right to live there, then you'll be able to make your application there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right. So I know we get this question a lot. Can students work on a student visa?
Thanks, Jake. Yes, so students on a student visa can work 20 hours per week during term time. So the main rule is during term time, if you don't have any scheduled lessons, you can work, but you have to ensure that you are not picking up shifts or going to work whilst you have scheduled lessons or any scheduled classes or anything like that in your timetable. You must prioritize your classes and your studies above your work. But outside of term time, you can work as long as you like. But you do have to let your VCO know if you are planning to work or travel during term time, and they can advise you if you have any further queries when you're here in London.
All right. Thank you, Megalay. Perfect. All right. So I know that this question comes up from time to time. Let's see. I'm going to move down to another question that we have about visa applications. Can you explain the visa application fees / costs associated with the application itself?
Sure. So there are a couple of costs within the application itself. So you've got the visa application itself, and then you also have the immigration or health surcharge, so the IHS, which allows you to access certain parts of the NHS whilst you're studying here with us. And this is really good because if you are sick or if you need some sort of medication that you would probably need to fly back home to obtain, you can actually when you come here, you can register with a general practitioner. You can book yourself an appointment and you can see what kind of help you can be given with the NHS. So those are the two main costs. And I know the IHS comes as a little bit of a surprise to all applicants, but if you feel like you are being overcharged or if there's something wrong, what I always recommend is reach out to a visa compliance officer and they'll be more than happy to help and have a look through the entire process and the application itself.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. So I think these are some additional questions that have been popping up even more recently. So the question is, my entry clearance is valid until October. Is this an error?
Yes, that's a very common question that we get. So, No, usually this wouldn't be an error. However, the first thing that you need to remember is when you get your passport back and you have that entry clearance in your passport, which means you've got the right to enter the UK as a student. What you have to do is you have to scan that entry clearance and you have to upload it onto CashShield, and you have to let your visa compliance officer know that you've done that, and they will review it for you. Every single student case is unique, so there's specific checks that we do on an entry clearance and the passport itself. So, some students may have their entry clearance may end in October, and some students' entry clearance may start on the 28th of, August or July. So this may seem a little bit daunting, but the entry clearance is only one part of your visa. Your second part of your visa you will receive if you've put us, Northeastern University London, as the ACL, so the alternative collection location for your biometric residence card. So you'll be able to come and obtain that at enrollment. So yeah, first thing is upload it onto CashShield and your visa compliance officer will let you know.
Perfect. Thanks so much. All right. Here is another one about biometrics. So I am trying to upload my passport/travel document 24 hours prior to my biometrics appointment, but VFS does not have a tab for this. So where should I upload my passport?
That's a really good question. And we do appreciate that the VFS upload document website is a little bit tricky. So, if you are required to upload your passport 24 hours prior to your biometrics, you can upload it under the additional documents/others tab. And it may seem like the entire of the checklist of the documents you need to upload is mandatory for you. What you need to do in that instance is you need to refer back to your UKVI checklist, which you would have received after you've submitted your visa application. If you're unsure, what we always say is once you've submitted your visa application, you need to upload that along with your checklist onto CashShield, and your visa compliance officer will advise you. But usually, students should only submit that passport if they're only asked to, and they can do that under the additional documents tab.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so going back to tuition and payments and whatnot, this question is: I've paid my first tuition payment. What should I do now in regards to my CAS and visa application?
Very good question. So, if we are aware that a lot of students have already made a tuition payment, which doesn't mean that it's a bad thing in terms of your visa application, but what it means is if you've made that payment, what you need to do is you need to let your visa compliance officer know, and you also need to either upload on CashShield or you can forward it to us a receipt of that payment. And what we will do is we'll take the amount you've paid in USD and we will convert it into Great British pounds and we will deduct it. And many students that are still struggling, they're not getting their CAS. Maybe that's the only thing that's missing. So if you send that over and your visa compliance officer checks and appropriately deducts that sum, that may be the only thing that's stopping from you from obtaining your CAS, like Poppy has mentioned before.
Amazing. All right. Another question is so around biometrics is I'm about to ship my passport for processing after my biometrics, but it is telling me to submit a TB certificate. What should I do?
So, if you have resided in a non-TB certified country for the last 6 months, so for example, if you've lived in the US for the last 6 months, you do not need a tuberculosis certificate. If you did need a TB test, your visa compliance officer would have asked you to obtain one after they've assessed your cash shield information at the beginning of the CAS process. But usually, if you were not asked to obtain one in the beginning in order to get your CAS and you have received your CAS, you would not need to get a tuberculosis certificate at that stage.
All right, perfect. Let's see here. What else? What other questions do we have? Um, just checking some additional questions. Okay, here's a question. After you receive your student visa and upload it into CashShield, what else do you have to do?
That's a very good question. So once you've uploaded your entry clearance, your visa compliance officer will check it for any errors. And if there are, they'll let you know, but usually that's very rare. The next thing you'll have to do is if you're not on a group flight, what you need to do is once you've booked your flight, or if you already have, you will need to upload those details onto CashShield so that we have a reference for that. Now, we are aware that some students may book their flights through third parties. So what we would suggest is when you get your boarding pass, whether that be a physical boarding pass or whether that be a pass that's forwarded to your email, just hold on to that and show it to us at enrollment.
All right, perfect. Let's see. Um, and Poppy, I'm not sure if you have taken a look at the Q&A here, if there's any specific items that you want to call out, perhaps, or if there's any additional information that you wanted to share.
Yeah. I think a really good question that came up was about providing your flight ticket. So, as many of you would have noticed on CashShield, it will ask for you to upload your flight details once you've received your visa. And I understand that a lot of students in the London Scholars Program will be taking the group flights. If you are a group flight student, you do not need to provide your flight ticket. We know that you don't have it yet, and we know that you're receiving it at a certain date. So don't worry about it. You can upload it later, but we do receive the information anyway, so that's fine. It's anyone traveling independently that will need to upload it to CashShield. So please do that. I think that was a good one. I think a lot of questions around BRP cards. So this is the physical card that you receive once you're in the UK. So again, like Megley mentioned about the 90-day window you have on your visa sticker, and then that will be replaced by a visa card. So it's called a BRP, Biometrics Residence Permit. So that will replace your vignette in your passport. You will only be able to receive this at enrollment. Your visa decision letter will tell you where you're collecting it from. Most of you will be collecting it from us at enrollment. This will be part of the visa check process. So you have your passport scan, your qualification scan, and then you'll receive your BRP card. So it will be on your first day. You can't come in early and collect it. Unfortunately, we need to do the visa checks first, and then you'll be able to pick up your BRP card. You won't really need it for anything that first kind of couple of days, so don't worry. If you know there's a specific reason, you can reach out to us, but there is no reason for you needing that BRP card. You have the vignette in your passport to prove that you're on a student visa in the UK. So I think that's key, is that you don't need to come to campus to try and collect it. Like at enrollment, the visa team will hand it straight over to you. We'll have them all organized and ready. If your visa decision letter says that you need to collect it from a post office, it's very rare, but some students have selected to collect it at a local post office in London. It's usually one of the post offices close to the residence halls. So please do have a look at your decision letter and check where it's being delivered to. So that's the letter that you received from the UKVI when your visa was approved. It would have come via email. And in that letter on the second page, I think it usually is, it will say your BRP will be delivered to, and then we'll have the address. If it's not Northeastern University London, it will most likely be a post office. You need to take your passport with you to the post office and collect it within 10 working days of being in the UK. If you're struggling to do that, if you need any help with that, you can reach out to us and we can provide you with support, but you will need to collect it and bring it to us for scanning. But the majority of students would have used a code on their visa application to collect it from us at enrollment. So I hope that helps with the BRP cards. And again, if you have a digital visa, so any EU nationals, you won't have a card and you don't need a card. So that's just for EU nationals. They will just have electronic visas.
All right. Perfect, Poppy. I'll give you a chance to take another glance at the Q&A and see if there's any ones that we maybe haven't touched on. I think we've touched on most of these here. It looks like there are some questions that are kind of case specific, and we want to make sure that we that you are referring to your specific visa compliance officer or working with the visa team directly on these. We just don't want to we want to make sure that the visa compliance team has the proper resources to take a look at to give you the correct information. So we don't want to go into too many specific cases as of right now, but hopefully the information thus far has been helpful in clarifying any questions.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's good. Migley, do you have any kind of final like things to mention?
Actually, I would love to add to the point of EU nationals that have obtained their visa because we are aware we have quite some of them. So, with if you're an EU national and you've done your biometrics via the UKVI app, what you will have to do once you've received your decision, of course, as Poppy mentioned, you won't get an entry clearance because you did not need to ship your passport, but you will be getting an email, and the subject of that email would be your entry clearance has been successful. So, in addition to flight details, if you're not taking a group flight, you will also need to upload that full email. So it's really easy. All you can do is just print it off and save as a PDF and upload it onto CashShield. And what you'll also need to do is your visa compliance officer will give you a link and you'll need to generate something called a share code. And that will allow your visa compliance officer to check the full validity of your visa that has been issued online. So you'll have your electronic visa checked prior to your entry. So if there are any issues, your visa compliance officer will let you know and they will help you every step of the way in order to rectify that.
all right, fantastic. And it seems like I know we chatted a bit about biometric appointments. It seems like one just came up. I don't know if there's a general note that we have about documents that are needed for biometric appointments. Just another uh, quick note about any of those pieces, but just wanted to throw that out there. What documents might I need for a biometrics appointment?
Sure. The best thing to do if you're not sure, reach out to us just because it does depend on your situation. So, for example, you'll definitely need to print the appointment letter. So you'll get a letter via email that will confirm your appointment. It will have a barcode on it. You need to print that and take that with you. You need to print your UKVI document checklist. So that is found on your UKVI account where you submitted the application. You need to download that, print it with you, and take it with you. Now, in terms of actual documents, it will depend on what the government has asked you to provide. So please do reach out to us. The best thing to do is download your UKVI document checklist from your account, send it to us via email, and we can literally list exactly what you need to take with you to your appointment. So it will depend on your case a little bit more specifically. So I wouldn't, there's no general, but definitely the appointment confirmation, definitely the checklist, and then of course your passport and other supporting documents that you may have been asked for. So if you're not sure, send your checklist straight over to us and we'll advise you exactly what to take. The other thing I was going to mention in terms of biometrics appointment, it is so important that you submit your passport within 5 days of your appointment. Once you go to the appointment, do not leave the biometrics appointment without knowing what you are doing with your passport. They need to provide you with a slip of paper that gives you the address where you're going to be shipping your passport to. And this is quite specifically aimed at students in the US, just because I know that in other countries they're able to hand the passport over at the appointment. In the US, you need to mail it to a processing center in New York. So you need to have purchased the UPS return label, which will be sent with your passport. But it's just so important that you do that within the time frame. If you're stuck and you're unsure, please email us. But please don't leave your biometrics appointments without knowing what you're doing with your passport. They do have that information. They need to provide it to you. And it's much easier if they give it to you while you're there. You've got it in front of you. As soon as you leave the appointment, you can go purchase your return label if you need to purchase it still, and you can pack up your passport, send it straight off, and it's done the same day. So it's just super important that's done. If you haven't sent your passport within 5 working days, please tell us, and we will advise you to contact the UKVI and see what you need to do next. But it's so important that's done. Otherwise, the sticker can't be put on your passport and you won't receive it in time. So just an important note. And if you're worried about that, or you feel like you may have made a mistake, that's totally fine. Just make sure you reach out to us so that we can help you get back on track.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Poppy. And another quick clarifying question was where would the appointment letter be coming from?
Yes, so the appointment letter will come to the email that you use to make your application and to log into VFS. So, for example, if you've used VFS Global, it will come from them. So it always comes from the biometric service provider you're using. So commonly in the US, that is VFS Global, but in other countries, it might be TLS Contact, for example. You will receive that via email. It will be an attachment, or you can log in to your VFS account. If you haven't received it, you need to check your junk, check your spam, check that you're checking the right email account. We can provide you with VFS's contact information. Unfortunately, we can't like directly contact them ourselves on behalf of you, but we can provide you with all the information if you're worried or you haven't received it. But you should have received the appointment confirmation via email.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So again, it looks like most of the remaining questions we have, not that we have too many, but are relatively specific to a student case. So again, please be sure to reach out via Cash Shield to chat with a visa compliance officer or email the visa team directly if you have any additional questions. Poppy or Migle, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
I don't think so. I think well done, everyone, for persevering with such a complicated process. We hope we've made it somewhat easier for you. If you do have questions, please reach out to us. We will assist you as best as we can. We want everyone to get their visas and, be able to arrive on time. So if there's anything you're worried about at all, please do let us know. And yeah, just reach out. If you haven't got your CAS yet, I would suggest just going straight to your VCO after the webinar, dropping them a message on Cash Shield and saying, please, can you explain to me what is left for me to get my CAS? And the VCO can say, we need this, 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 and this, and then we can issue your CAS and you can start working on that as soon as possible. Migle, any final thoughts?
I think you've covered it all. Like you said, just please get in contact with us. Don't stay silent and just, wonder what's happening. Yeah, because sometimes all it takes is for us to reach out via a quick phone call or an email or a message, and then we can get it resolved and get you your CAS and get you here for September.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you, everybody, for your attention today. And again, this session was recorded and will be sent out to folks and will be in our ongoing playlist of webinars. So again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day.